Loaded bases. Got John Williamson, aka Swilson. How's it going?
Good, man. Going well right now. I know we both just got done with long days.
Yep.
Today, let's see, I had a little bit of law school and I work part-time as well. So I just got done with that. And so yeah.
Oh, so you're a law student as well?
Yeah, so I'm in law school right now. I'm working part-time as an attorney. And when I got done with baseball, I kept coaching. I give lessons on the side and stuff like that. But um, trying to get back in through baseball, maybe through the legal side as an agent or representing
Mm-hmm.
players. So I mean, that's kind of the goal.
I'd say because your path to where you are now is not it's definitely not the or normal path that people take. So how did you get to where you are today? Like, so tell me your
So that's
story.
that's a great question, man. So I grew up in Houston, Texas. Obviously played little league baseball from the age of 5 or 6. Went to Lamar High School, and I would say I was a pretty good player and up until high school, but nothing, definitely not the best in little league or the best in my area. Hit puberty in high school and started throwing a little bit harder and got a little
Mm-hmm.
power. And back then we were using BESR bats, which is
Yep.
a little bit different than the BB core
Those
today.
were I'd say so they switched to BB core my senior year. So that was so sad. That
Yeah,
sucked.
senior year in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I must be a year older because my first year of college was the first year of BB core.
Yeah.
So when I try to tell people my story or my background, I always point to that because so my sophomore year at high school, I hit like 2 home runs. I did okay. Really started working out, working on my swing, hitting all the time. In my junior year, ended up hitting a lot of home runs and started getting recruited by schools, kind of as a power hitter, which is funny because the rest of my career I ended up being a pitcher, and I think a big
Yeah.
reason why were those bats. And so like I said, big power hitter in high school. Never picked up a BB core, and I remember going in. I got recruited by Rice, committed to Rice, and going into that my freshman year, one of my friends asked me, he's like, "Hey, have you ever used a BB core? Because you're gonna have to use it next year." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm good. Don't worry about it. I'm fine." Like, and I remember my first BP just hitting like 300-foot fly balls
Yep.
and being
It's a
like,
big
"What?"
difference.
Yeah, and I was like, "What in the world?" And I was just so shocked and like demoralized. I was like, "I swear I used to be a power hitter." And then next thing I knew, I was especially when you move your swing that way, where you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a pull hitter. I'm gonna try to hit it out." Well, with BB core, especially those newer BB cores, as you know, they sucked. So
Yeah. So you were drafted by the Cubs. How was that experience?
yeah, man. So that's a whole nother, fast forward another 4 years. When I originally went to Rice, like I said, I was an outfielder. Funny enough, a power hitting outfielder, even though maybe I really wasn't. It was because of those trampoline bats. But when as an outfielder, didn't really play much my first year. Um, Played a little bit, but as a sophomore, but not really. And came to my junior year, and obviously that's draft year. You're thinking, this is the time to get drafted. And at that time,
Mm-hmm.
I was just an outfielder. I pitched on the side a little bit, but just as an outfielder, and ended up having a bad junior year. As only played half the season just because I was hitting so bad. And following that year, I realized that as a lefty and having 3 years kind of struggling at the plate, my only path forward was going to be as a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So that summer, I went out to Santa Barbara, California. Fast forward the whole season, kind of learned how to pitch a little bit. Um, and that next June, obviously, walked into draft meetings before that draft, and I kind of told her I was a senior, had a little bit of a record as a pitcher, but I was like, I just want an opportunity. The Cubs were, I was lucky enough to talk to the Cubs, and they liked that. They didn't have a whole lot of left-handed pitching in their organization at the time. So they drafted me, and that's originally how it started. But
Mm-hmm.
then I played for them for 3 years. Yeah.
So how was that being in that organization? Well, I mean, because me as a Cubs fan, I want to know.
Yeah, man. No, it's unbelievable. I I wish I had another experience to compare it to play with
Mm-hmm.
the other 29 teams, but it was so incredible when they take you on. You're a minor leaguer. A lot of teams treat you like a minor leaguer. The Cubs don't. And I'm not just saying this. They spend a ton of time, money, resources into minor league development,
Yeah.
whether that's on the coaching side or the mental health side or the nutrition side, strength and conditioning, all of that stuff. They pour a ton of resources into that. And so, I mean, it's so helpful. Having said that, at the same time, I'm, a slight critiquer of the minor league system because I talk about it all the time on Twitter, but it really is a rough system. Even if you're playing for
Yes.
somebody like the Cubs, I mean, I couldn't imagine going to a small market team because, like I said, with the Cubs, we got nutritionists, we got strength and conditioning.
You actually tweeted about this today.
Yeah. So I started tweeting back and forth with Kevin Youkilis, who I met when I was with the Cubs. And we kind of got into a back and forth. Not really. I mean, I know him and I'm friends with him. So it wasn't friends is probably a strong word, but I've met him. And we got into a little debate about small market versus big market. And so what I said is that you want to get drafted by a small market team because they have larger incentives to kind of develop players.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas someone like the Cubs, or let's take the Yankees is probably a better example. I mean, why are they going to develop somebody when they can just go buy them or trade for them?
Yeah, correct.
So having said that, I absolutely love the Cubs, but it was tough to make the big league squad because, as you know, I mean, the year that I was there, we won the World Series, and I mean that team was stacked. The bullpen was stacked,
out.
Right, insane. If anything, maybe the bullpen might have been that weak spot. But if you're a position player, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way up, which is good. That's why it's such an incredible organization.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what I said, I was talking to Euclid about it, but I think what I meant is that there's no better team to play for than, let's say, our couple teams, Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Dodgers, all those big market teams. There's no better team to play for, but unfortunately, all of those teams, those are the hardest ones to make the club. And I guess it makes it that much more worth it if you do get a chance to play at Wrigley. But it was tough, just like looking around, not only at the big league guys, but at the time I think we were like top 5 minor league organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we traded away Glaber and
yeah, for Chapman.
Yeah.
That was that. Oh man, that was. I mean, to look back at that, it was. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm glad. Personally, I'm glad.
No, yes, same here. I think it was worth it, but that would be an example of, instead of developing guys, I mean, they're trying to win at that point. And so it's like, okay, what minor league talent can we trade away to win right now? And they could afford to do that. Whereas if you're the Baltimore Orioles, you can't trade Gleyber Torres away.
No, you have to keep him throughout.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so not to go too far into that, but it's funny because I'm a ride or die Cubs fan. I'm from Houston, but honestly root for the Cubs stronger than the Astros. But at the same time, I do critique minor league baseball, not the Cubs minor league baseball, but minor league baseball in general, just because I got out. I played 3 years of it, but I know plenty of guys that played 8 and never made it and never, saved some money. So I really do see both sides of it.
Yeah, I can definitely understand like what you're saying because I did a interview with I guess a few other minor league guys like who played in the past, and they say it's not. I mean, like, well, the pay is not fair. Like it's unreal. Like was like because there's this article that I read. It was about like the average salaries like between the minors and the majors. It was like $4,500 for the minors and $4 million for the majors.
It's insane.
It's getting crazy. Well, I mean, and then like because I talked to this a minor league coach today, like this morning, and he was telling me like how he was excited so he was saying that he was excited that like the big squad gets to go play, but what about the minor league guys?
Yeah, so I was literally just talking about this with some of my ex-Rice teammates, how there's a 60-man roster now, which is sweet. And that's kind of what spurred my tweet is saying play for a small market team. Because guess what? If you're playing for a small market team, there's a good chance that Yeah, they might
Yeah.
put you on that 60 man. But or you have a better chance of just making it in general. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the 60-man roster, and then it's like 28 active people on the MLB roster. But most organizations, and the numbers are changing now, so these aren't exact, but most organizations have between 150 and 200 guys. So you're talking about 100 guys that
Mhm.
not only aren't making the big league squad, that's fine, but what are they going to do for the next 6 months? I mean, they've
Yeah.
been training every day, and now it's like, okay, our season's canceled. We'll see you next, next March. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And I mean, like, because you don't get paid unless you play. And then there's some, I mean, so like that's the part like where me as a fan, I get frustrated like with like other people who say that they're fans. They don't really understand that baseball players don't make all of them don't make millions of dollars.
Yeah, dude, and I think that's a common misconception. I got
Oh,
like
very, very.
I see it on Twitter all the time, and I remember, so last year Kyler Murray got drafted, obviously.
Yep.
Um, Football and baseball, and I immediately came out and I was like, he better take, or if he gets drafted in the first round, I would take the football money. And like I had a ton of people just like start tweeting at me immediately and were like, look at these baseball contracts, look what Trout's making, look what Harper's making.
It's like, well, yeah, but they had to
Yeah,
play so many years just to get
exactly.
there. And
Exactly.
and you cannot compare Kyler Murray baseball wise to Mike Trout.
Right.
No way.
Yeah, dude. I completely agree. And I was just like, y'all aren't seeing what Trout's even a bad example, and Harper too, because they moved through the minors so fast. But let's say the average minor league career
Yeah.
is, if I had to guess, 3 to 5 years. I mean, so that's 3 to 5 years of no money.
Yeah.
And like you said, $4,500 or however much you're making,
That's higher
aside
than
from,
minimum wage
yeah, exactly, nothing.
or
You're
lower
living
than
in
minimum
poverty.
wage.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
living in poverty. And so if I'm Kyler Murray, whether he was going to be better at baseball or not, which, like you said, that's a great, I didn't even think about this. The better point to make is he's not going to be Mike Trout. Like,
No.
even if he's a run in the mill, MLB player, he's going to make more money with football because it's all
Yeah.
going to be not guaranteed, but it's going to be up front. And let's say he gets 10 mil. To make 10 mil in baseball, he's got to play for 6 years, go through all that arbitration, and then sign that deal. If he gets hurt, he's done.
Yeah.
If if he has a bad season, which, as you know, as a baseball player, hitting, you can easily have a bad season that puts
Yep.
you in a slump. Um, so I just like, I don't think people see, like you said, I don't think the common fan sees the behind the scenes of how they see Mike Trout and they go, oh, baseball money. And it's like, no, the average baseball player isn't making anything.
Yeah, there's also a lot more behind like Mike Trout's just on the field.
Yeah.
He packs out stadiums just because he's Mike Trout,
Yeah, absolutely.
and they recognize that.
Yeah.
It's
And
I mean, I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. And because I want to like inform people that like the baseball isn't just I mean, like everyone's making money and like that, like the back and forth, like with the owners and the players, like let's say
yeah.
like this past few months, there's way more to it than just that.
Yeah, no, that's, I appreciate it. That's a big reason I came on. I like people that know what they're talking about, but that are also curious. Like, I don't know everything. I don't pretend to know everything. And so I like, every day when I'm reading about these going back and forth with contract negotiations and they're trying to figure out the season, I'm curious too, because it's not as simple as people make it.
No way.
The whole system isn't, and baseball in general isn't. It's not just, it's definitely one of those sports that is kind of underreported on, because some people outside of baseball, people may not think it's as interesting.
Yeah,
Um, but it's insane how complex all the issues are, from, hitting a 90-mile-per-hour fastball,
yeah,
but to making it through the minor leagues, you know what I mean? And sustaining a career. It really is crazy. And I don't think a lot of people know about it,
yeah,
aside from the baseball community that actually cares and reads and is involved with it.
yeah. And that's I guess that alone like is the beauty of the sport. It's just like the last thing in the whole process is just the players on the field. There's
Yeah.
so much more behind that, and that's like one of the things I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it too. Like, I know that I listen to a podcast on Barstool called Pardon My Take, and they talk
Yep.
about
So do I.
they always talk about football guys. And I almost want to coin the term baseball guy because it's the same thing where, you know, you either kind of, you have it or you don't, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. You know, you can either talk about it and like be informed, or you're the Twitter troll that's like, just go play, or, you know what I mean? Like that has no idea what they're talking about. But yeah, so, I mean, I would love to be considered like a baseball guy.
Well, I consider you a baseball guy.
How about that, man?
So yeah, no, it's, I mean, like, cause I played in college and I pitched in outfield, and then injuries set in. So then
Oh,
I
yeah,
had
I
to
didn't
hang
know
it
that.
up. So I guess, so then after I stopped playing, it was kind of, I see it as like a positive thing, because then now I can learn more about the game and more than just like what's on the field.
Yeah, I could completely agree. I think the majority of stuff of everything I learned about baseball really happened after I was done, and it
Yep.
was, you know, obviously that's a sad day, and it still makes me sad or angry to this day. But then you can see things from a new light, and you can look at it where you're not wrapped up in it. You can look at it, you know, with a bird's eye
Yep.
view, where you're like, okay, this is how this works, or you just have a newfound appreciation for it. Whereas when you're playing every day, you just kind of show up and you do it.
Yeah.
So I think there is a saving grace of when you're done, you definitely view it a little differently.
Let's say, because you also had a second side passion while you were playing as well.
Yeah,
And
so that kind of a long story, not to make it too long-winded, but in high school I started, you know, rapping, mostly honestly on our like high school bus, or going
yeah,
to a game and you'd freestyle before a game or
there's
something.
always that one kid on the bus.
Yeah, unfortunately, that one kid was me at that time. But
Hey,
no,
it pays off.
well, funny enough, it worked out. Obviously, I would catch crap for it, you know, back then, where it's like, okay, you don't want to be that guy. But we would always, you know, freestyle on the back of the bus. When I got to Rice, I started making some, you know, YouTube videos of songs and doing remixes and stuff. And that was like around the time of like Macklemore, and I forgot who else was
Yep.
around. But I would take some of those beats, like the thrift shop beat and stuff, freestyle over it, and then post it on YouTube. And they would get like 100 views, maybe like 1,000 views. And I remember when I was like filling out applications for getting drafted to all these teams, I made sure to like not put that, so that they like look at my YouTube.
Yeah, it's like on resume, I got 1,000 views on a video.
Yeah,
Check that
exactly.
out.
Yeah, exactly. So I would try to like either hide it, or sometimes when I knew, so the scout that the Cub scout that actually drafted me before I got drafted was like, hey, this is really cool. I actually like this. And so like to him, obviously I would like kind of pitch it and talk about it. But for the most part, try to keep it under wraps.
Mm.
And at that time, I, for no other reason, everyone always asked me why I picked the name Swilson. And it was only because someone on my team was like, just would always pick nicknames for people. And for some reason, he said that for no real reason. And so I was like, oh, that's just far enough away from my name that I could post on YouTube and no one would know who I am.
Yeah.
So I kind of did that. Anyways, like I said, 100,000 views maybe. And first year I went through still making videos, you know, still while I was pitching, but I was pitching so bad that I was like, okay, I probably need to chill out on this music. I don't want the Cubs to think I'm like a rapper.
I'm a rapper, kind of baseball player now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm a rapper with a 10 ERA. Like I'm definitely gonna get cut. I came back the next year, and one of the coordinators, Darnell McDonald, who helped with our mental training and stuff, and helped with a lot of big leaguer guys, and he's a former big leaguer himself. He came up to me. He's like, "Hey, dude, I heard you freestyle. You know, let's throw on a Drake beat, and how about you freestyle about the Cubs about to win the World Series?" And I'll send it to the big league guys. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I'll send it to Chris Bryant, Rizzo, all those guys. And I was obviously nervous, but I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like if it's bad, obviously he's not going to send it to him. And so they put on in the clubhouse in A-ball, like 0 to 100 by Drake, like the beat. And he's like, yeah, just rap about the big league guys. And so I randomly did a freestyle, like an actual freestyle. And I always tell people this, like, was not planned. I had made 100 planned songs in my life and they were all terrible. And And so I ended up freestyling. I said like 108-year curse, we're going to win the World Series.
You put it all in there.
Yeah, all that stuff. I don't even know. And I didn't even post it. Like, this is how crazy it was. I've posted YouTube videos. Of course, I wanted to be a rapper, all this stuff. It never happened. And I didn't even post it. And I went to bed that night, and he posted it on his Instagram. And I don't know how many followers he had, but, not a huge amount. And the next day, like, my Instagram just started blowing up, like 10,000 new followers, 20,000 new followers.
No shit.
Yeah. And it's like, and obviously the majority of them were Chicago people, like going nuts. And like CBS picked it up. Bleacher Report picked it up.
That's crazy.
Barstool picked it up, and like overnight gained like 30,000 followers. And I was like, what? This is nuts. It all started blowing up, and then like people started reaching out to me for stuff. Like Travis Matthew sent me some hats and like shirts, and people started asking me for paid Instagram posts, and
damn,
all this stuff. I took over Bleacher Report's Snapchat for a day, like right when this happened. And I'm still in low A, and I can't remember if I was pitching well at that time, but I had the same thought where I was like, this is kind of sketchy because I don't want the Cubs to think I'm a rapper.
Yeah.
And not a pitcher. So
it's actually kind of the Cubs' fault.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. It was like, I wasn't, in this case, I wasn't the person. So it's funny that it happened that way.
Yeah. Damn. Well, yeah, because I've seen that video.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is wild.
It is wild. And so what happened was, funny enough, so I start blowing up, and I'm like, okay, I guess I need to monetize this. Like, I guess I need to try to make some money.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah. And so this is the funniest part is that so I get like 30,000 followers overnight, and I'm like, okay, I guess I need to post another video. But at the time, I can't remember whatever my ERA was, but I wasn't pitching great. And I was like, okay, I can only post a video after a good outing, so it doesn't look, terrible.
Yeah.
So like I waited till my next good outing, and I, grabbed one of my friends on the team, Justin Steele. Funny enough, he's on the 60 man of the Cubs, and could break with the team or could make it. But I was like, hey, will you come videotape me in my car? And it was like kind of awkward, but we like did a 30-second freestyle again. And then next thing I know, that had like 50,000 views.
Damn.
And then all my past stuff started getting a lot of views. And so that whole season, I would wait until games that I pitched well to post.
Hey, if it works.
Yeah.
That's all. That is the baseball in you right there, like the superstition.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did that for a whole year, and ended up having like an unbelievable low A season, like better than I thought I could do for sure. Finished still doing music, doing a lot of music.
Mm-hmm.
And that off season did a ton of music. And it all kept like blowing up and doing really well. But I was like, okay, maybe I need to slow this down a little bit and try to make it, like, obviously I want to focus on baseball, not music.
Mm-hmm.
And then before I came into my last spring training, I kind of hurt my shoulder, but I didn't tell the Cubs. And so I got a cortisone shot and showed up to camp. And I remember them the first day, they're like, hey, we're going to try to throw you in a big league spring training game. And like, obviously I get real nervous. I'm like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
But I like start to get nervous. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be nuts. Like even Cubs spring training games are packed in Mesa. Yep. at that park. Most other teams, it's like, okay, they might.
What year was that?
So that's 2017.
So that's the most packed spring training there is.
Everyone's freaking out. And I'm like getting kind of nervous. Like the year before, South Bend had a ton of people, but anyways, you're pitching in a big league game on ESPN.
Yep.
So I got nerves didn't really matter at that point, but I was like, oh damn, this is the real deal. Like I have a chance to make it, obviously. And so I was trying to break with either high A or double A that year, and my velocity was just way down. I was throwing like 85 miles an hour that spring training, and did okay, but I wasn't throwing very hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so they ended up not putting me in a game, or they put me in, obviously, high A and double A scrimmages, but not the big league games. And got to the end of that spring training, and they kind of pulled me aside and they said, hey, we're not going to take you to high A. And I looking back, this is probably my biggest regret. I didn't handle it very well, because I was, my response was, hey, I just like, is this because of music? And they're like, no, it's not because of music. It's just because your velocity is down. We need to rebuild your arm. And I kind of took it in a bad way. And I was like, this seems like it's because of music, because I did well. I know I'm not throwing hard, but I did really well. And kind of got upset. And I was like, hey, why would, I had such a great year. Why are y'all holding me back? And I don't think that was well received on their end, because as you know, at any level of baseball, that's, as a player,
you just gotta just nod your head and go on.
Yeah. And that's something I regret to this day. I wish I would have just said yes, sir, and then grinded, but I didn't, and I got upset. And so 2 weeks later, I got my velocity back up, and so they shipped me out. Funny enough, this is a good Cub story, actually. This is a good Cub story. So, because one of my last outings. So I stayed 2 weeks into extended spring training. They tell me at like 8 p.m. that I'm going to Myrtle Beach the next day. And I have like a 6 a.m. flight or something, because they always like to, because they're booking last minute flights, these flights are expensive. And so the theory is they always book you on like red eyes so that they can save a couple of bucks. And also so you can get there early, as opposed to like get there at game time.
Yeah. So some rest in.
Yeah, exactly. So I know this is all long-winded, so I apologize, man.
Oh, dude, go ahead. This is your episode.
No. It's so they tell me at 8 p.m. And so obviously now I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm not going to sleep anyway.
Yeah.
So they have someone come pick me up at the hotel at like 4 a.m. or whatever, and I go to the Mesa Airport or whatever it is, Phoenix Airport, and end up flying out. So I fly out on like 2 or 3 hours of sleep, this isn't a whiny story, because most minor leaguers do that. If you're getting promoted or demoted,
you're going on the spot.
Yeah, you're going on the spot. You're grabbing your bags and you're like, wait, what? And then all of a sudden you're in a different city. And so they fly me out. And I remember getting there, and they didn't even really have a jersey for me. They end up giving me a jersey. Everybody else has their name on the back. I have like a big white patch, and it's like a medium jersey. And I remember getting there, and they're like, okay, like you're on the roster, but obviously you're probably not going to pitch. We know that you've had a long day, a long night. Just be ready to go tomorrow. Well, that night, I don't remember what happened, but our starter gets into trouble. The relievers get into trouble. It gets into like kind of a late game, and we bring in, Dylan Maples.
Yep.
So I played with Dylan, that was my second year playing with him. Best stuff I've ever seen in my life. Just like absolute freakish stuff. Best fastball and best breaking ball I've ever seen.
Filthy.
Yeah, but his whole time with the Cubs before I was there, had battled some injuries, and then just had bad luck. Like a Texas leaguer and then a walk, and then gets pinched on the next pitch and then hits a guy, and then next thing you know has a 5 ERA.
You're in a bad situation really quick in baseball.
Yeah, and so he stuck around in the Cubs organization for a long time before he ended up making it. But, really struggled. And in one interview, he was like, I was close to quitting just because things weren't going my way, whether it was an injury or whether it was a lucky blue pit followed by, 3 walks. And you're like, how did this happen? Like I was 1 pitch away and now I'm out. So anyway, so he's pitching, and same exact thing happens. Like I think he had been in minors for like 5 years, on the brink of just the breaking point of any baseball player where like, this isn't worth it, man. Same thing happens. I can't remember, like, I want to say a blue pit, and then he hits a guy, and then we make an error, and then another blue pit, and he's the last relief me. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm going to have to pitch tonight. Not only am I nervous, not only am I kind of mad at the Cubs in general.
You're tired, all of the above.
I'm tired.
All of the above.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm kind of nervous because I'm like, Dylan's my friend and I want to do well for him. And I know that he's so close to that breaking point of just getting unlucky in baseball where he's like, this isn't worth it. Yeah. And so they tell me to get hot. And so I start throwing, and I'm just like so wild in the bullpen. Just everything's terrible. And I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to come in this game and blow it. And anyways, coming to the game, bases loaded, 1 out. And I can't remember how many runs or if any runs he had given up. But end up throwing like 2 high sliders that are nowhere close. And the catcher comes out and he's like, what do you want to throw right here? Obviously fastball. And I was like, I guess let's just, throw another slider. Anyways, throw a slider, break the guy's bat, double play, we get out of it. And for two reasons, I was pumped. One, I just got promoted. I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna stick around here. But the second reason I was pumped, I was like, I got Maples out of a jam. Like he
Yep.
has the best
You
stuff in our
you
bullpen.
saved him
Right.
runs.
I saved him at least 3 runs. I can't remember if he had given up any. But I was pumped for him, and I was pumped for my career.
Mhm.
To fast forward, why this is a cool story is fast forward, 2 outings later, I get cut. That was, traumatic. And, worst moment of my career.
Mhm.
But I think in that September, he made his debut.
Yep.
And I always looked back and I was like, it was amazing because who knows, as you know, as a baseball player, when you go into a slump, it just snowballs out of control. And
Yep.
it's that same way in
It's
pitching.
bad.
Right.
It screws in the head, man.
Yeah. And it goes into the next outing or goes into the next at bat. And so I remember thinking, when he made his debut, I was just so pumped, even though that I'm sitting on a couch and he's in the big league game, that I was like, what if, I give up a bomb there, he wears 3 earned runs and he
Yep.
goes into a pitching slump. Instead, he gets out of that 3 runs, saved, and he dominates that year, ends up making the big league squad, probably going to pitch in the bigs again this year, has arguably the best stuff in the major leagues. He just needed a little bit of luck. And it wasn't my skill. It just happened. I broke a guy's bat. If anything, that was lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that just shows you one pitch.
See, that's another beauty of baseball. I mean, yes, it is a team sport. It's a individual sport as well. But I mean, you're there for each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can take that all through life.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
No, it's cool. Sorry for such a long story,
Oh,
but
no, dude.
I
That
always
is
try
good.
to tell people that. And
I'm so excited I heard that, honestly.
No, yeah. It's not from a spot of I think that I'm the reason he made it. I think it's the opposite. I was like, everybody on the 2 teams I played with him on was like, you have the best stuff. You could go pitch. His scouting reports, I remember our coaches would write them after the game because you want to give them. They would write up how we did that night and give them to the coordinators to show, okay, Williamson, you did threw this hard tonight. And so that the uppers, Theo and all those guys,
they can
know
see
how
the progressions.
Well, every time, yeah. Every time Maples would pitch, whether he did well or not, if the pitching coaches would say could have pitched in major leagues tonight. But some nights he'd give up 4, like I said, just on 2 bloops, a walk, and a double and an error. And so I think it's cool that who knows what would have happened.
Yep.
I cash in as 3 runs. His next outing, the next guy cashes in as 3 runs, and he's like, screw this. And who knows what happens. So
when you're hot in baseball. And when you're not, you're dog shit.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think you can flip it on its head hitting wise too, is we all know those guys that get lucky, and those guys end up being good because let's say me and you go up there and you have a good at bat, you end up striking out, you're pissed off, and I go up there and I bloop one over shortstop and I'm 1 for 1. We both go into that second at bat with such different mindset.
Yep. Yes.
You're like, oh, I need this hit. I can't get benched, or whatever your mindset is. And I go in, I'm like, all right, already got a hit today. Let's go. And then I get another hit because I'm feeling good, and you're pressing, and now you're 0 for 2 and I'm 2 for 2 because of some stupid little blooper.
Because it's also the same thing. If you went 0 for 3, but you have 3 line drives right at someone. In the book, you went 0 for, but you actually did pretty good tonight.
And what I would always joke about this, and some guys said I was too pessimistic in the minors, but in the moment, so obviously you're going to look at the end of the year stats. You're going to go, okay, what did he hit in AA or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the moment, you're exactly right. If you go 0 for 3 with 3 lineouts, your coach is going to go, hey, it's all good, man. Don't worry about it. I know you went 0 for 3. I know you had 3 lineouts. But at the end of the year, it's really hard to quantify. Now, this is what sabermetrics does. But in the minors or in college or in high school, it's really hard to quantify because there's so many at-bats that no coach is going to remember, oh, he lined out 3 times that one time. You know what I mean? They're just going to look at that stat at the end of the year and be like, okay, he hit 260. And it's like, well, yeah, but he could have had 15 more hits if, they weren't shifting him or whatever.
Yep.
And so I would always say, like, when that would happen, it's just the worst possible luck, because everyone acknowledges you to that night and it's like, oh, you got unlucky, man. But at the end of the season, no one's going to remember that, because they're going to look at the average or whatever and go, oh, this is your average. And you're like, okay, but that doesn't account for you.
This game.
Yeah.
I hit, there's bases loaded.
Yeah.
Then the center fielder dove out in the gap and caught it.
Yeah. And you're the only, that's what's funny. Is like, you're the only one that can remember that. I mean, you can go back to any game in your life and you're like, okay, I did that. And if that just dropped, and it's like funny because
I have so many situations like in my head, like where I can explain in detail. I'm like, okay, well, this play was bullshit. It's just, it's crazy.
And I bet your teammates or coach couldn't though. But in the moment, they're like, hey, dude, you're good. Don't worry about it. Hey, like I like, they acknowledge it, but it's just, nobody can remember that stuff.
Yep.
And so I would always joke about that in the minors when I would have a rough outing and it was because of bad luck. Everyone would be like, oh, dude, it's okay. And I was like, yeah, it's okay tonight. But at the end of the season, when they're tallying up, my ERA or a guy's batting average, it's not okay.
No, that's why baseball's amazing.
Yeah, no, there's no sport like it, man. I mean, it's a game of failure.
Do you take that mentality with you, like when you do music as well?
Yeah, man. I think baseball and music are similar because in many ways, my careers in both of them were similar in that in baseball, I was, like I told you, I was an okay, little league player, decent high school player. And my junior year, I had a tournament at Rice, a doubleheader of select ball. And that day I went 4 for 4, like best day of my life. Rice ends up offering me that night, literally off base on one day. Like I had some tools, whatever, but I wasn't some big prospect that threw 95, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I showed out a good day.
Potential.
Yeah, exactly. Potential, whatever. But so that one day, changes my life. Well, then I told you about the whole, Cubs thing where I freestyled for 30 seconds, ends up changing my life.
Yep.
And like both of those things, like you said, you only see that microcosm of like a moment, but they had so much hard work and BS and crap behind them that you didn't see. You know what I mean? Like staying late in the cage, trying to work on it. And I just get one lucky 4 for 4, get recruited, make 100 terrible YouTube songs that, no one ever listened to, and then put together a decent, 30-second freestyle. Next thing I know, I'm a rapper. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of an overnight thing. And so I do take it with music where it's like, I work really hard at it, from the marketing side a little bit, to a lot into the songwriting, and now I produce stuff.
Do you do your own marketing?
Yeah, and I'm not very good at it, but
I can help you on that one.
Yeah, man, I would love to pick your brain on that because I don't know enough. It was kind of, I do it because I had to, if that makes sense. There was no other real way. Having said that, I did, one person I did talk to, which would be cool for your podcast, I think, is the founder of Baseball Lifestyle 101. His name's Josh Shapiro, and he talked to me a little bit because he's one of the biggest baseball accounts, if not the biggest baseball account on Instagram. Yeah. And so when I blew up, he posted all my stuff, and I immediately reached out to him, and I was like, hey, man, do you mind if I, ask you some questions? Like, how can I get posted on your page more? What are you looking for? How do you promote, he would sell necklaces. He still sells all this stuff, but hats and shoes and stuff. And I'm like trying to figure out how he made a brand of it. But besides that, I don't really have, a marketing background. And I think that's a big part of music, but also business and as you know, baseball too. So, yeah,
I mean, cause I see like baseball as being like a direct correlation, like with business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, cause that's like how I have my like passion, like with the both.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's been a long month and a half.
Yeah.
Like from an idea. But I mean, like, as you were saying, you never know unless you try.
Yeah. And I think you'll be shocked too. Like what I said, both of those things happened because I worked hard at it, but to be, completely honest, there was a lot of luck involved. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like I freestyled, but let's say I don't get drafted. So this is part of the reason I love the Cubs so much. None of that would have happened with another organization. Does that make sense? You know,
Yeah,
if I go to the
definitely.
Orioles and I freestyle about the Orioles big league team and they lose 100 games, I'm still that YouTube guy that's like, like you said, that guy, like, he's still trying to make it. He's trying to be a YouTube rapper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm with the Cubs and it blows up. And then same thing with baseball is like I go 4 for 4 in front of Rice, but what if there was only, what if there was no scouts there? I go 4 for 4 and then
Then that's just another day.
Yeah, it's just another day. And then going back to what we were talking about, how the blooper can turn into 2 for 2, it's like because Rice was there, now I go 4 for 4. I get offered by them. Now I have a big head. Well, not that a big head's good, but like now I'm confident. Now I'm like, I'm this, I'm a big, powerful, left-handed hitter. When in reality, what if I went 0 for 4? I'm like, baseball kind of sucks. And so it really can flip like that. And I think the same thing's true with podcasting. The same thing's true with business. It takes a ton of hard work, but you kind of need that light switch moment, or a sustained path of growth. But I didn't have that in either one. It just kind of happened.
And so yeah, you pretty much nailed that whole advice thing right there.
No.
Hey, no, it was easily, man.
No, man. It's funny because so now I coach like a little league team, or I help out with 2 teams and I give lessons. And the first thing I always say to the parent and the kid is I'm a pretty good person to get lessons from, not because I made it, not because I'm great, not because I know what I'm talking about, but because I didn't. I was like, would you want to take, there's nobody in the world this isn't necessarily true, but pretty true, that nobody in the world I'd rather meet than Tiger Woods. But I really wouldn't want to learn golf from him, because I don't know if you've ever seen the stuff on Instagram. They're like, Tiger, what do you think about it? He's like, I try to swing hard and square it up. And you're like, okay, I need a swing thought. Like what? You can't just like walk up and hit it out of or not hit out of the park, but square it up. I'm like, I'm slicing it 50 yards. Like I need a tip. And some
of the best people, the best coaches never play the sport.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think majority of the coaches I've had, I'm trying to think right now. Obviously, some of them had baseball experience, but some of them didn't, and it was like they were the best coach I could have asked for.
Yep.
Just because I think it's a little different, but also I'm not trying to say that the best aren't good coaches. It's just they have such a different viewpoint.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I've talked to guys. I remember hitting at Rice, and some of our most talented guys, after they hit a home run, I'm like, what pitch was that? And they'd be like, I don't know. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, I just, I'm trying to square up the ball. And I'm up there like trying to analyze. I'm like, okay, is he moving his glove? Like,
this is the count. Is his hand turning?
Yeah.
And you're thinking too much. And it's like, oh shit, that was a fastball. I was looking to change.
By me. Yeah, exactly. And so I always joke that like, you don't want the guy that's just so freakishly talented.
Yep.
That Tiger Woods' thought process probably is, I'm just going to hit the crap out of this ball.
But he's done it so many times.
Yeah. You can't teach a 6-year-old that though. A 6-year-old picks up a golf club. You can't be like, all right, just hit it as hard as you can. Like you have to start with some form of basics. So I always joke with these kids. I'm like, I'm the guy that didn't make it. Like I can tell you, I watched the guys that did, and I was the one that didn't. So I can tell you both sides of it and be honest. Whereas athletic freaks, it's like some guy that just runs a 4.3, that's the wrong guy to go learn, wide receiver routes from, because he's just a freak. You know what I mean?
It's like if you have Usain Bolt trying to teach you how to run fast, like
you're like, what?
You cannot teach that body style.
No, you can't. And I mean, it's probably the same as Mike Trout. Like obviously he'd probably be a good swing coach, but it's like, dude, you're just so much more talented than me that I could make. Or actually, here's a good example is everybody, for my first 12 years of my life, I tried to hit like Griffey, my favorite player of all time. I remember my dad telling me to crouch down and like change everything. I was like, no, I'm watching Griffey hit bombs. And so I would go up straight like this every time. And I was not a very good hitter, but I was trying to hit exactly like him. And it just didn't work because I think every person is a little different. And honestly, he's the wrong person to hit like. He's just so far ahead of everybody else that why would I go look at him?
He's just athletically gifted.
Yeah. What I should probably go look at is like the AA guy that's like struggling to make it, constantly like jacking with his stance. That's like, you know what I mean?
Or you can go hit like Kevin Euclid.
Yeah, that's true too. Just like hold it like this.
I used to do that. Like, I'd say, because I used to try and like hit like him, like when I was younger, him and Gary Sheffield.
Really? Yeah.
Only because it was just like some crazy little thing.
Yeah. No, I would do the same thing. I think I mean, one, every swing is different, but two, like some of those guys that are pulling off those swings, you know, you can't account for their hand-eye coordination or their strength.
That's just how they're naturally.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do think like, and this probably expands to outside of athletics too. It's like not every CEO that's, you know, a billionaire might be the best person to learn from because they might have had a string of luck, or they might just be so gifted or knowledgeable in their field that it's hard for them to relate to the common person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of want to talk to someone that has seen both sides of it, that's successful, but it can also kind of point to specific points and be like, okay, this is how I was successful. Like it didn't just happen. And I think mega athletes are just like, they're so good that, you know, what am I going to learn from Tom Brady? He's just clutch, you know, like it's just, like, I don't know what to, you know, so.
No, dude, that makes perfect sense.
Trying to think, but yeah.
You're good.
No.
Wait, because so I'll just end it like with like a final advice thing, and then we can just talk after that.
Yeah.
So okay, so final advice. What would you tell a kid that's playing Little League right now, and they don't want to play baseball, but their parents are making them play baseball? What do you tell them?
That's a tough question. I guess I would start out I would ask them, you know, why they don't like baseball. And I think a common answer is that there's a lot of downtime.
Yep.
And the second answer would be there's a lot of failure. So I coach a lot of kids, and it's tough to deal with that failure. You know, you go 0 for 3 and it's the worst day of your life. And you have to realize that in baseball, 0 for 3 isn't the worst day of your life. It's the majority of your life.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like
0 for 7 is the majority of your life right there.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to go 0 for 3 twice. And then you're probably going to go 0 for 3 a couple more times and then have a couple hot days. What I will say with baseball, why it's so rewarding and why I would tell the kid to keep playing, assuming he truly didn't hate it and he just, you know, disliked it, is that there's no success in baseball. There's no better feeling. You know what I mean? Like you look to other sports and, you know, people are scoring 30 points in basketball. Receivers don't always catch touchdowns, but, you know, the majority of the time quarterbacks are throwing multiple touchdowns in a game. In baseball, it's just not that way. If you go watch Mike Trout hit, there's a pretty damn good chance that he goes 0 for 3 or 0 for 4.
I have actually seen him go 0 for 4 or 4 strikeouts. I was there in person. I have a ticket stub from that. James Paxton did it.
Really?
It was up in Seattle, yeah.
Against a lefty too. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's what's common. But I think the beauty of baseball, we kind of already hit on it, is that success is rare. So when there's no better feeling, you know what I mean? Like if you're 0 for 3 and a knock, everything is lifted. You're not thinking like there's no. I hit one walk-off hit when I was at Rice, and honestly, like I blacked out for like 5 minutes. Not because it was the most clutch thing of all time. It's just like it's so hard to be successful that those little tiny bouts of success, there's no better feeling. You know what I mean? And that goes for every level of baseball. Like I'll coach kids that, I'm not kidding, will go 0 for 30 or 40 or however many at bats they get in a little league season, not many. But if they just get one hit, and I'm not even talking about a real hit, like I'm talking about the ball dribbles 15 feet to third base and they beat it out. It is like their parents are like climbing on the fence.
Yes.
The kid is like literally just hands up. He's like, yes. And like, you can't replace that.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's
and then going back to your point though, you go to Mike Trout, And even him, he's failing 3 out of 10 times. And so he's getting pumped on those 3 hits. Like, anybody that plays baseball, if you're hitting 300, you're a Hall of Famer. But when you're getting each of those hits, you're pumped because the majority of the time you're getting out. And a lot of times in the bigs, you're getting punched out. So you're looking like an idiot swinging at a curveball in the dirt. Anyways, to make a long story short, I would tell them that it's a game of failure, and that's why it makes success so much sweeter. Like, the best moments in my life, honestly, have probably been home runs, even if they were meaningless. Like, seeing a ball go over the fence is like the most satisfying thing in the world, because you know that doesn't happen. Like, that's not common.
Yeah.
Unless you're a freak. But you know what I mean? It goes over the fence. You're like, there's no better feeling than jogging around these bases. And honestly, too, I would also say that it makes failure a little easier to take because it's expected.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean? Like, you throw a pick as a quarterback and you're like, I'm not supposed to do that. Like,
unless you're Jameis Winston, then you go 30 for 30.
That's insane. That, I don't even know how. That's a whole nother. I mean, that's all. Actually, that reminds me of baseball too. The Chris Davis starting out whatever he went for.
Yeah, I was like 0 for 50 plus.
Yeah, that was wild too. I felt, but so this is an example of a baseball guy. When he was going 0 for 50 plus, if you were one of those people like absolutely bashing him and saying what an idiot, or if you're like one of the baseball guys that's like secretly feeling for him, like, oh, that sucks. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that you can't bash him. Like, I probably made some jokes, but like, I remember secretly feeling like, ooh, like, he's like, that's.
I knew like what I would feel in my head.
Yeah.
I would not. I don't know. But then you get to a certain point where you're just like, no, screw it.
Yeah.
It's just, this is my job. Like, and then you look at the positives for it.
Yeah. And he's getting paid and all that stuff. But no, I just really felt for him. But to go back, I just think that, one, the success is sweeter because it doesn't come very often. 2, it helps you deal with failure, which is more of a parent's answer. Like, you can tell the parents, like, hey, this will help them deal with adversity when most kids don't. Like, you're not getting a participation trophy. If you suck, you're walking back to the dugout. Like, that's just how it is.
Everyone's watching you.
Yeah. But having said that, it makes those kids deal with it, and it makes it a little easier. Like, when kids strike out and they start crying, and don't get me wrong, I might have been that kid, but I can immediately be like, dude, this is baseball. You're going to strike out. Like, Mike Trout strikes out. Unless you're Tony Gwynn, who had like a freakishly low amount of strikeouts, you're going to strike out.
The stats are unreal.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think it makes both things better. It makes hitting a home run that much sweeter, and it makes striking out go, okay, I got to take this to the chin and come back better, and that's why I think it's such an awesome game.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Solid.
Have me on. Thanks for listening to my long-winded answers.
Dude, I will do it again.
No, it's all good. It's all good.